everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. Today, we're going to be recapping what was a pretty strange week 2 in the NFL. Some weird outputs being put out. I wasn't too happy about it. I'm kind of frustrated, not going to lie. But how are you guys after watching week 2?
I mean, I'm great. It was a weird week. A lot of injuries. We'll go over a few of those. But yeah, I'm good. What about you, Stores?
The general vibe of the NFL right now just kind of feels off. Seems like the balance is not restored yet. Um, and from a personal standpoint, it's pretty horrible. Couldn't go any worse at this point. But from just a general football watching standpoint, it's entertaining. It's fun seeing that. It seems like there's really no overpowered teams. There's really no superheroes yet. Just no one taking over. And it feels like everyone's really close, and it's just a lot of scrappy games going on, and a lot of outcomes you wouldn't expect. So, I mean, it's been pretty exciting. Definitely not what I thought, but I mean, it's crazy. Week 2 has been nuts.
Yeah, some close, scrappy games, which you definitely love to see. And before we get into our recaps and takeaways, let's do a few housekeeping items. And first, congratulations to Shane. He is the picks champ for week 2.
Let's go.
He kind of had a really good record. You got 12 picks right. You only got 4 games wrong, so that's pretty impressive. Not gonna lie. So shout out to Shane.
Oh yeah.
Shane gets the crown for this week.
Thanks to Sean Watson for freaking losing me the game, and that at the end, gosh.
Yeah, it all came down to the Browns and Steelers for Stores and Shane to see who won, and Shane came on top.
Yeah, thanks to Sean Watson. Really appreciate you, buddy.
Brutal. And then the next thing we're going to implement is a new kind of segment in our recap episodes. It's going to be one stud of the week and one goof of the week. So before we get into our stud and goof of the week, are there any honorable mentions that you guys want to mention? There are a lot this week.
Let's get into the first two, and then we'll keep going with a couple others.
Okay, so we'll start with the positivity. We'll start with this absolute stud of the season, really, and that's Puka Nacua. He's the wide receiver 2 in fantasy after week 2, which is awesome. You love to see it. The rookie 5th-round pick, who would have thought, out of BYU. Last week, he had 20 targets, 15 catches, 147 yards, and 2 rushes, if that wasn't enough touches for him. They were just running him into the ground. I kind of felt bad for him. Like at the end of the game, he was visually just hurting, and he was already on the injury report before the game. So Puka Nacua, remember the name, absolute badass. I love the guy. Anything you guys want to say about him before we get on to our goof?
I mean, 35 targets through 2 weeks is absurd. If this dude's still on your waiver wire, drop whatever amount of fab you have left on him, because it'd be worth it. The fact that he came out and did what he did against that 49ers defense is really telling. It wasn't just a fluke. So I think he's the real deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy. Puka Nacua just stole the Cooper Kupp role. Cooper Kupp goes down. Puka Nacua is Cooper Kupp all of a sudden in this offense, and it's crazy to see. A local boy from where we're from. Pretty sure we played him in football a couple times. Pretty crazy though. Pretty crazy story, and it's cool to see that Puka Nacua is wide receiver 2. No one, you couldn't have bet anything that would have happened. I mean, no one would have guessed, but I mean, here's Puka Nacua, wide receiver 2, pretty much playing like Cooper Kupp at this point.
It's the surprise of the whole season. But if you watch the NFL Seekers this offseason, it really shouldn't be that much of a surprise. Like we'll pat ourselves on the back for that. We've been hyping him up in our fantasy episodes and in our NFC West deep dive. I specifically said that he is Cooper Kupp. They're going to use him in that Cooper Kupp role, and he was their biggest addition. That aged well. You see a lot of people talking about him as their he is Robert Woods. I didn't mean to say Cooper Kupp. He is Robert Woods to Cooper Kupp, and I think that's a perfect complementary duo. Even when Kupp's back, I think Puka is going to be an awesome start in fantasy, a good flex option. I think the Rams offense is just good. And we'll go to like the different spectrum of this Rams offense, and we'll get to our goof of the week, who didn't even make it past practice this week. He apparently had a very bad week of practice, and so he was a healthy scratch. The Rams starting running back Cam Akers was a healthy scratch before the game of week 2. So that's a pretty unfortunate goof of the week. I drafted him in fantasy. I'll hold my hand up. I goofed.
I liked him going into the year. It seemed like there was a lot of hype around him that he was going to be their guy. I don't know what happened. It's like we're in the same spot as last year. It seems like they can't make up their mind. Hopefully, they actually do something about it and just get rid of him now. Now I wonder where he'll go. That'll be the interesting thing. So we'll see.
I'll be honest, I never once drafted Cam Akers. I always hated him. I had a weird feeling that he was never gonna, prosper into anything. And I'm gonna Dan pat himself on the back for Puka Nacua. I'm gonna pat myself on the back for saying stay away from Cam Akers, because there was not one bone in my body that was feeling good about drafting him. So I'm glad, and I feel bad for Dan that in our main fantasy league he's the beneficiary of Cam Akers. But yeah, absolute goof. Same spot as last year. I mean, the Rams, he needs a fresh start, and maybe he can revamp his career somewhere else, but it's not with the Rams.
He is worth.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say he's worth holding on to just to see if they do trade him in the next week or two to see where he goes and what kind of situation he's in.
Yeah, the process of drafting him wasn't even that bad, because like the Rams are a really good offense, and Kyron Williams is absolutely balling and getting a bunch of targets in the workload. That should be Cam Akers. So that hurts. Cam Akers is not that good of a football player, unfortunately. Didn't take that into consideration. But are there any other studs or goofs you guys want to talk to before we get into the games? We'll talk.
I actually, on the same kind of trend here, a stud and goof from the same team, I want to mention Nico Collins and Dameon Pierce. Nico Collins, these first 2 weeks he's been killing it. CJ Stroud looks better than Bryce Young. They're throwing the ball in Houston. Dameon Pierce he's hurting from that. He's not much of a pass catcher whatsoever, and they're not running it. He's not running it well, and they're not giving him the ball enough, I guess. But Nico Collins is looking really solid through 2 weeks.
Yeah, and again, don't mean to toot my own horn, but if you watched the last episode of NFL Seekers podcast, I specifically said start Nico Collins if you have him. I said you get him on your team and start Nico Collins, and he provided 7 receptions for 146 yards and a touchdown. And so I mean, I'm going to toot it a little bit. I'm going to toot my own horn. But yeah, Nico Collins an absolute stud. But I'm more of the negative guy on this podcast, so I want to throw out a couple goofs, and that's going to be Mr. Josh Jacobs, running the ball 9 times for a whopping -2 yards. I don't know if I've ever seen that, so I'm going to clap for Josh Jacobs for setting a new record. You got to love it. -2 yards on 9 carries from a guy who was the leading rusher last year. Head scratcher on that one. And then another absolute goof I'm gonna point out, who has just been absolutely non-existent, is going to be Mr. Pat Freiermuth. 1 reception, 1 target, and 2 yards. Pat Freiermuth, supposed to be
wait. But how many catches did he have week 1?
He had 1 catch week 1. So we're averaging 1 catch a week, and that is just the life of a fantasy football tight end, and it's frustrating. But 2 goofballs, and I'm the negative guy on this podcast, so I'm just going to point out the goofs.
And I mean, a couple other studs that aren't obvious, like the Justin Jeffersons, Mike Evans went crazy. Rashad White, I mean, the Bucs overall. Rashad White looked awesome. He was my dude coming into the season. So he looked good. Raheem Mostert has looked awesome through 2 weeks, and he's actually staying healthy. So that's a surprise.
T. Higgins
is back. I feel like, I mean, he was definitely a very good trade low candidate. Good luck for that now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. Yeah. We'll talk about a lot of the other studs as we get into it. But anyone else you want to talk about, Josh?
Oh gosh. No one in particular. Shout out to the rookie tight ends though, who actually do seem to be playing okay right now. Dalton Kincaid and Sam Laporta. If you drafted them late, your investment seems to be paying off. It looks like they're getting some targets, and for how horrible tight end is, it's good to have a little upside. So if you got them, they've not studs but solid players.
Luke Musgrave looks awesome as well.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of upside, three high upside tight ends. So, and hopefully Michael Mayer gets more involved too. But with that, we'll get into our game recap and takeaway section. We'll start with this Eagles and Vikings game on Thursday night. And man, that Eagles defensive line is absurd. That's kind of been the story of their first two games. That's like the first time I've seen Kirk like truly frazzled. He looked a little scared at the end of that game. The Eagles defensive line is like legit sick. It might not have been like a sexy game for the Eagles, just defense and running the ball, but they did what worked for them, man. And it was a good game. I thought the Eagles executed and did well.
If you have a running back that's not one of the obvious, top few guys, bench him against the Eagles. Alexander Madison was completely irrelevant. It seemed like he almost got benched in the fourth there for what's his name? Marvin Ham, something like that.
Ty Chandler, and then they were playing their fullback CJ Ham at running back. They were literally playing their fullback as running back, like half. I don't
even know that dude's name, but yeah. So this Eagles defense is gnarly against the run. That is. Isn't Bradbury still out? So I guess while Bradbury's out, it's somewhat pass friendly compared to the run defense.
Yeah, they did just sign Dalton Risner, which is a nice little boost for that offensive line that needs a lot of help. And another note that I just want to say real quick before Josh goes is Devontae Smith is insane. Like, he could finish as their wide receiver one. The Slim Reaper is absolutely insane.
Yeah, Devontae Smith looking like wide receiver one right there in Philadelphia. I mean, he is the wide receiver one, just he's playing with AJ Brown. But yeah, he's looked like the better wide receiver for through the first 2 weeks. But I want to shout out a couple players on the Vikings. I mean, Kirk Cousins absolutely balled against a good defense, tossing 4 touchdowns, going for 364 yards. Of course, Justin Jefferson goes out there and does his thing. And then another shout out, Jordan Addison, 2 touchdowns through 2 games. For a rookie wide receiver, that's what you like to see. And then TJ Hawkinson scoring 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, I don't feel like the Vikings offense played too bad, honestly, against this, star-studded Eagles defense. But again, the Eagles were just a little bit too strong and too talented of a team for the Vikings to compete with. And, the Eagles do what they do. They ran the ball like crazy. I mean, I think they had like 230 rushing yards. Rip Kenneth Gainwell and everyone who spent their fab bucks on him. Danny.
We'll see.
DeAndre Swift. You never know with the Eagles, though. They seem to switch running backs weekly. But, I mean, DeAndre Swift finally playing how he should. 28 carries, 175 yards, and a touchdown. He looked fantastic out there. And, the Eagles they haven't been playing great football, but they've done what they needed to do to win, and they're 2-0. So it's been pretty impressive, even when they don't seem like they're at their best.
Yeah, I was going to say this game went exactly as expected for us, kind of, except for that whole running back situation. So how are you guys feeling about moving forward when everyone's healthy? How are we feeling about the running back split for the Eagles?
Not confident.
I do think it's still going to be Kenneth Gainwell's backfield. Maybe with this performance, DeAndre Swift gets some more action back there. But I thought Rashad Penny was going to see more action. That dude is they're probably going to cut him at some point. But I think Josh made a little joke because Danny picked him up. I think if you did spend a lot of money on Kenneth Gainwell, it will pay off. He's going to be their RB1 still as long as he's healthy. And I mean, DeAndre Swift can't stay healthy either. So I mean, there's going to be a point when he goes down, I'm sure. But I do believe this is still Kenneth Gainwell's backfield.
I think Boston Scott will lead the team in carries and rushing yards next week, and then it might be Rashad Penny the next week. So I don't feel confident. Yeah, I don't feel confident at all in the Eagles. They're kind of just like always been a running back by committee. Last time I felt confidence about an Eagles running back was LaShawn McCoy. So I don't know. I try and avoid Eagles running backs at all costs, but I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, if whoever starts for this team will be good, and whoever gets the most touches will be good. It just depends who that is that week. So we'll see who's RB1 going forward. But I mean, Miles Sanders did have a pretty good season last year, so maybe they will stick with our true RB1.
Yeah, shout out to the Eagles offensive line, first of all, because DeAndre Swift was running through massive holes. That is one thing that I kind of predict this backfield will play out, as Swift will probably get the majority of carries in week 3, kind of coming off that momentum. And then when the Eagles kind of see how bad his vision as a running back actually is, he'll kind of get phased out for Kenneth Gainwell again. So I expect Kenneth Gainwell to get the full workload here soon enough. But anything else you guys want to say on this one?
AJ Brown will be back in a big way next week. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, don't worry about AJ Brown or any Eagles player for that matter. They're going to be electric. We'll get on to the next game. The Bills beat the Raiders, and all I got to say is they bounced back, and Josh Allen shut me up for sure because this is the performance I wanted from him. It was just a nice, surgical, smart, not a careless performance. So I'm happy about that. And I'll say his touchdown throw to Shakir was like just a freaky throw. That was a beautiful throw, and I love to see that. And all playmakers were involved too, which is a really good bounce back win for them.
Yeah. Oh, go on, Shane.
I was just gonna say on Josh Jacobs, yeah, he sucked these first 2 weeks, but this is a really good opportunity to go try to buy low on him. His only 9 carries and obviously -2 yards. I mean, that's an anomaly. He's not gonna do that again. But you add in the 6 targets he got against this great. I mean, it's still a great defense. The Raiders, I mean, they're not great, but I do see going forward, maybe not next week, but in the near future, Josh Jacobs being more so the man that you drafted him to be. I would say go buy low on Josh Jacobs.
All right, Shane, thank you. I will not be trading Josh Jacobs for the next couple of weeks.
Hold on to him. If you have to, hold him.
Thanks for the tip. Yeah, no, it is a good time to go buy low on Josh Jacobs. I'll be honest, I'm an owner of Josh Jacobs right now, and I'm frustrated. And it's taken everything in my gut to not want to go start offering people trades for him, just with how disappointing he's been.
That's the worst thing you could do.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you never want to sell low on a guy unless you can get decent value in return. But yeah, it's not worth trading Josh Jacobs right now. But if you can buy low on him, it's fantastic. And then, like Dan said, and we and Dan talked about this last week. We said Josh Allen's going to make everyone forget about what he did the week previously, and he's going to go out there and he's going to play fantastic football, and he does. And so it's just kind of a back and forth. Josh Allen just needs to find a level of consistency, because either he's great or either he's bad. And this is the Josh Allen we need to see, week to week. Where he's making surgical, smart throws. And then, I mean, he does make a lot of crazy throws. Even in this week, I mean, he was just he figured it out. And where last week he was just making, he's playing careless football. So if we can just find that balance for Josh Allen, the Bills are just going to be fantastic. Because I mean, they showed you 38-10. They took care of business. Their defense played great. I mean, there's not much to talk about. They just went out there and they showed up.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Josh Allen just needs to find that balance. That's a good way of putting it. It's important. Can we talk about Matt Milano mossing Josh Jacobs real quick? That was pretty ridiculous too.
That was wild. Yeah. I wanted to mention, I mean, James Cook looked awesome, but those Latavius Murray carries on, I think it was like the 5-yard line and in, it was all Latavius Murray. Yeah. If you're a James Cook manager, that's pretty frustrating. But either way, James Cook still, I mean, 17 carries and for 123 yards. Let's see. And I think he obviously had some receiving in there. Maybe. Do you not have any receptions? Oh, no, he did 4 catches for 36 yards. So that's so much value. So even though he's not getting the touchdowns, he's getting the value in the passing game.
Yeah, 20-20, James Cook is their guy. And then once they get into that like 5-yard line range, it's scary because I saw Damian Harris, Latavius Murray, and Josh Allen all got more goal line carries than James Cook. So that's a little scary, but James Cook's a really electric player on 20-20. So
yeah, he looked fantastic out there. I mean, the whole Bills offense was just rolling at a top tier level, and I mean, it showed off this week. It was fantastic to watch.
All right. With that, we'll get into our next game. The Ravens go into Cincinnati and defeat the Bengals 27-24. Pretty resilient performance from the Ravens. I was pretty surprised by it. Their offense looked great. Todd Monken looked pretty comfortable, and people weren't really giving the Ravens a shot because of all the players they were missing. They're missing some key players like Marcus Williams, but they played good. And Joe Burrow clearly isn't at full strength because that was a little rough again, just like week 1, and that run game needs to be fixed. So I think there's a little bit of coaching issues as well going on at Cincinnati, and it's just messy, man.
If I am a Joe Burrow manager, I'm not playing him until he's healthy again, because he did tweak his calf again. He came out and said, and until he proves that he's a starting quarterback for fantasy. It's been a joke. So I'm benching him this week, especially with that or next week, week 3, especially with that injury. He plays Monday night. I wouldn't want to wait it out. I'd want to get someone else in there. But yeah, they've looked pretty bad.
Him playing on Monday night makes that very scary.
Listen, Shane, we're not panicking, okay? This is what the Bengals do every year. But honestly, as a watcher, I'm panicking because the Bengals don't look good. I mean, they hung in that game somehow, but Joe Burrow doesn't look good right now. Honestly, he doesn't look like he's playing like Joe Burrow. I mean, Joe Burrow is an accurate quarterback, doesn't make mistakes, and he just looks uncomfortable out there. And maybe that's a lingering injury issue. Maybe the coaching staff. I mean, the line honestly looks more disappointing than it should because they've spent so much money. But yeah, I'm kind of hitting the panic button on the Bengals. And not to mention, it's 2 division games that they lost, and that's substantial. I mean, it's one thing losing to outside opponents, but division games matter more than anything. And you go 0-2 in the division for your first 2 weeks. I know Joe Burrow says they're not panicking, but I think it's time to hit the panic button a little bit on the Bengals because they're not looking too sharp right now, and Joe Burrow doesn't seem to be healthy. The offense just doesn't seem to be clicking like you think it would. And I mean, Jamar Chase, kind of very disappointed with him through the first 2 weeks when he's going, the second pick in fantasy football. He hasn't looked all that great. T. Higgins did have a little bit of a bounce back game, so congratulations for him going 0 points to like 30. Of course, I play him the week he goes 30. It's just typical. Also played TJ Hawkinson. Doesn't make any sense. But that's just my luck through the first 2 weeks. But yeah, I'm hitting the panic button on the Bengals, but I also really respect and like how the Ravens are playing football. And, they're only 2 weeks into that Todd Monken offense, and it's starting to really come together, and they're starting to look electric out there.
Yep, looked a lot better this week. The Ravens defense is looking feisty. And yeah, like you said, the Bengals defense is looking worse than usual. Their offense obviously isn't the same electric, elite, top 2 Bengals offense. So it's going to be interesting to see where this team kind of ends up at the end of the year. It's going to be interesting to see how this division plays out. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like hard to give analysis on this game because I'm pretty surprised by it. And it is hard to predict if the Bengals are going to come back at this point. They didn't look good.
Lamar Jackson had a good bounce back week.
Yep.
So that was good to see. And then
Mark Andrews for him is just so huge. They have a beautiful.
Oh, yeah. And then, I mean, Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, I guess they totally split 10 carries for Gus, 11 for Justice Hill. And then I guess Justice Hill did get 3 targets. So maybe Justice Hill is more so the better play, but that's tough. I feel like if you're really desperate, you can toss one of those guys in your flex and you could get some good production. But when they're splitting that heavily, there's a good chance they both kind of are duds for fantasy.
Yeah, Justice Hill's the play if you need to play one, but that's a pretty desperate play. I don't think I'm starting a Ravens running back with that little piece of pie.
It seems like that's how it's been the last 4 years. Like, I'm not starting a Ravens running back. I'm not starting a Ravens running back, and here we are again.
Yeah.
Yeah, a nasty, ugly backfield that I don't want a part of either.
Yeah, if only Dobbins could stay healthy. I'm not trying to mess with the Melvin Gordon backfield, but we'll go on to the next game. The Seahawks go into Detroit and beat the Lions, and that was an electric game. I'll be honest, people were overreacting in week 1. The Seahawks are just fine. They're back. They didn't have either of their starting offensive tackles, and they went into Detroit and beat Aiden Hutchinson and the Lions. So that's pretty impressive. Great bounce back. The offense is back. Geno is back. That was a big game for Geno. That it could have, if he had another stinker, it could have lost a lot of confidence. So that is a real big game for Geno and the Seahawks moving forward, honestly. And yeah, I'm pretty impressed with the resiliency for the Seahawks going on the road with some pretty bad injuries on the offensive line and beating Dan Campbell and the Lions after beating the Chiefs. It's a pretty good stuff from the Seahawks. And I will say, I think everyone kind of overthought Charbonnet in the offseason, and Kenneth Walker's just an absolute beast and a bell cow.
I had a feeling that was happening. I think I even mentioned that in one of our episodes in the preseason, but he was getting so much hype. It's too hard not to draft him. I would say still hold on to Charbonnet. You never know. And I guess if Kenneth Walker does go down, Charbonnet is going to be that dude. But yeah, for now, it's Kenneth Walker's backfield. And I mean, as for the pass catchers, DK was fine. He did get banged up. He missed some time, but he came back. And Tyler Lockett went crazy with those 2 touchdowns. But that's just what Tyler Lockett does. We mentioned it. He's always ranked in like the wide receiver 30 range for when we're doing drafts, and he finishes like top 16. It's just what he does.
He balled out.
Yeah, Tyler Lockett shows up and he does it every single year. He's so slept on. But yeah, this is kind of reminded me a little bit of like the Chargers Dolphins game last week. Absolutely electric game, high scoring, both teams scoring 30 plus points. And not gonna lie, a little sad because Lions are my sweetheart team this year. Sad to see them lose. But I mean, they played a great game of football, but Seattle was coming back and they wanted to win, and you could just tell it felt like Seattle wanted it more. And Geno Smith, props to him, he played a heck of a game, heck of an overtime drive, ending it with Tyler Lockett touchdown. That was awesome. But yeah, overall, and then fantasy implications. David Montgomery did get hurt. It's going to be exciting next week to see Jahmyr Gibbs have a full backfield really to himself. So I'm excited to see him be the lead back and really take that next step forward, because it seems like to me he is the substantially better running back. He's just not getting the opportunities.
Craig Reynolds is going to ruin your week next week. I just have a feeling Dan Campbell's going to fiend those Craig Reynolds carries.
Well, also with the David Montgomery injury, he came out and said it could take a couple weeks, but then the team came out and said that he's day-to-day this morning. So that's kind of weird that they're so far off. I'm sure he'll be out at least a week. And if that's the case, I can't wait to see what Jahmyr Gibbs does. But yeah, you're probably right. Craig Reynolds is going to break some hearts.
Oh man.
But Gibbs is still
though. That dude is just awesome. Amon-Ra just shows up and he's such a stud. If you drafted him, congratulations, because that dude is just awesome. Every week he's gonna put up ridiculous numbers.
He's just such a first down machine. It's crazy. It's just third and Amon-Ra. Jared Goff again played great. Had that pick 6, but it was his first pick in like a year. So I'm not worried about Jared Goff. He looks so dialed in that Ben Johnson offense. I love it.
Oh yeah. Let's move on to the next one.
All right, we'll go on to the next game. The Colts go into Houston and beat the Texans 31-20 with Anthony Richardson getting a concussion. So the Colts are good, man. Like that's a pretty big win going into Houston, winning by 11. I feel like both teams are pretty even. Anthony Richardson is just electric. You saw those 2 rushing touchdowns. He looks like a running back. Shane Steichen is a fantastic coach, and it's pretty clear he's got that whole Colts team playing very good. He's got Anthony Richardson playing in a good scheme for him. So I'm excited about this Colts team. They're going to play spoiler in a lot of games this year.
And Shane Steichen, he's got Michael Pittman back. Last year we lost Michael Pittman, but this dude's he got 12 targets this week. He's going to be such a steal because he fell in drafts just because of his performance last year. But man, Anthony Richardson, that dude is going. If he can stay healthy, because it's scary with how much he runs and the hits he takes. Luckily, it hasn't been anything serious these first 2 weeks. We'll see with the concussion. I saw this morning there's about a 75% chance he plays week 3. So he is so electric. He's so much fun to watch.
Shout out Gardner Minshew though. Stepping in, going 19 of 23. 171 yards and a touchdown. Gardner Minshew looked like QB1 out there. But yeah, that's just the benefit of having Shane Steichen as your as your head coach. What an absolute. I think that's probably, one of the biggest steals of the offseason for the Colts and any team in the NFL. Shane Steichen is the quarterback guru, and he made Justin Herbert an MVP rookie in his first season, goes over there, makes Jalen Hurts, an MVP, has 2 MVP type seasons. Then comes over here and Anthony Richardson looks fantastic. So, shout out Shane Steichen, just really keeping this Colts team on track and competitive. And then I also want to shout out though, I really do like the football that CJ Stroud is playing. I think he looks fantastic, and I really do think he's the best quarterback out of this draft class from what I'm seeing. It's just the most poised, best in the pocket. I really like CJ Stroud, so shout out to him.
It's crazy what we're seeing from the Texans. We thought they were going to be a run-first defensive team, but their defense and run game have looked a little suspect, and their passing game is incredible. This is the first time we've been able to have 3 good receiving options for the Texans since Deshaun Watson. So yeah, CJ Stroud's balling, and I definitely want to keep seeing that. I feel like the Texans are still competitive. you'd like to see them win that game at home, but I feel like they're still going to be competitive week in and week out with D'Amico Ryans.
The Texans have 4 legitimate pass catchers in this offense. As long as they keep throwing the ball this much, they do. I mean, you got Nico Collins and Robert Woods with 9 targets, Tank Dell with 10 targets, and Dalton Schultz with 7. If they keep throwing the ball this much, there's a lot of weapons in this offense.
Yeah, Tank Dell could be really fun too. It's kind of crazy. I think he had the most snaps in that offense too. So Tank Dell could be a fun option. All right, let's get on to our next game. The Chicago Bears against the Buccaneers, and the Justin Fields saga might be over, boys. We might be in for Caleb Williams as a Chicago Bear. It's a little rough. It's a little depressing. It's kind of crazy how fast things have changed. The hype train was kind of all on Justin Fields' side, and then it's completely flipped here in 2 weeks here in 2023. So interesting for the Bears, but for the Buccaneers, just more positivity. 2-0. You got a real chance to win your easy division. Your defense is playing really good, and your weapons are looking good. It looks like Baker can feed those weapons, and obviously Mike Evans just had a monstrous game. But it's good to see Rachaad White having a really good game in the receiving and rushing game as well.
Source.
Oh, you want me to go first this time, huh?
Well, I already mentioned Mike Evans and Rachaad White in our studs and goofs. Fine, you know what, I'll go. And then, I mean, DJ Moore, he looked more so the part that we thought he was going to be this week. So that was good to see, even though it was a down week for Justin Fields. That was nice to see a solid week for DJ Moore. And then this running back, I mean, the running back situation is just weird. You got Khalil Herbert, who's supposedly the guy, 7 carries, Roschon Johnson, 4 carries. I mean, and that's it. So if that's what it's going to be like, that's a useless backfield for fantasy. Maybe it's just a down week. But yeah, that's pretty gross.
Yeah. This whole there's nothing more when you just point out those running backs. I hate a team that can't be decisive and just figure it out with their running backs. And then no running back is going to be able to be successful or be good with only getting 4 or 7 carries. It's just not how it works. So I absolutely hate how the offense is being called. That Justin Fields is letting everyone down right now. And they look terrible. The Bears look terrible. They're very disappointing. They should be a lot better than, I mean, gosh, the hype was crazy in preseason when they threw that 70-yard pass to DJ Moore on a screen. And the next play, Justin Fields throws it to Khalil Herbert for 50 yards, and they look just on fire in preseason. And they come out and play, and they look so flat and awful. So very disappointing. Maybe they'll have a bounce back, but I don't know. It's looking rough for the Bears. And then on the other side of the field, Baker Fitzmagic is just absolutely looking insane. He's going out there. He's doing his thing. It's gonna come to a halt. It's not gonna last forever, but we'll ride the wave while it's going. But I mean, the Buccaneers defense does look fantastic, and they really can be competitive for this division because it's not a very tough division to win. But yeah, I mean, we'll ride the Baker train as long as it lasts. It'll probably end sooner than later.
Well, so you say it's going to end. What's going to end first? The Derek Carr train with not as good of weapons, or the Baker Mayfield train with better weapons?
Both.
Well, someone at the
same time.
I'll say the Saints are gonna outlast probably.
Yeah,
I think the Bucs are going to outlast.
Oh no!
I also don't know if the Bucs have better weapons either. I think the Saints probably have a better arsenal of weapons. The Bucs have 2 really good stars, and then outside of that, it's a little rough.
You want to make a bet
that the Saints win the division?
Wager.
I picked the Panthers to win the division. You picked the Saints to win.
And I picked the Saints. I'm switching it up right now.
I'll bet that the Saints finish with a better record than the Bucs. Yeah.
All right. I'll bet that the Bucs finish with a better record than the Saints.
All right.
You bet.
I'll probably finish with the same record and tie, but it's whatever.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, we're going to be like $1,000 into bets sooner than later. Oh man. But yeah, I see. I didn't bet on this, but I do see the Saints outlasting the Bucs. I think the Baker hype and everything is going to come to a halt here pretty soon. It just feels like it's inevitable, where I feel like these Saints will be able to continue it. But shout out to Baker, and shout out to Mike Evans. He's looking fantastic. And, I hope they're, I mean, I have no reason to not root for the Bucs, and I hope they keep it up. But I sadly, Bucs fans, I see it coming to an end. It's just, it feels like I've seen this script too many times. And, I do expect it to end.
Hater.
Yeah, don't listen to him. Don't listen to him. The Bucs are going all the way. We'll get on to our next game. The Chiefs beat the Jaguars 17-9 in Jacksonville, and it's not the game we expected. It was a gross one. If you had any players in fantasy in this one, they probably let you down. We'll talk about the Jaguars first. It was, 9 points at home in a game like this is kind of unacceptable. I picked the Jaguars. I was thinking the stadium was going to be rocking. I thought the offense was going to be clicking. The Chiefs defense is really good. I'll give them credit, but you got to be better than that. Christian Kirk was awesome. A good bounce back game from him. For the Chiefs, nothing crazy. It was nice to see Travis Kelce back. You could tell he was definitely a little limited and definitely coming back from injury, but it's good to see the Chiefs get the W on the road against a really, really good Jaguars team kind of nonchalantly.
This just shows how valuable Chris Jones is. Yeah. I think we mentioned this in preseason when we were going over our rankings and everything. This Jaguars offense is just, they have so many weapons. It's kind of going to be like a Niners offense when, like last week on the Niners, it was Brandon Ayuk. This week, it was Debo. Last week for the Jaguars, it was Calvin Ridley. This week is Christian Kirk. And I think we're going to see that. It's going to, it's going to ebb and flow with who's the number one guy. It's not going to be too consistent, which, that's great for Trevor Lawrence. But this week, it was Christian Kirk's week, 14 targets. That is absurd.
Yeah, honestly, this is just a gross game. And it kind of gets me a little excited for the AFC, because I feel like it's a lot more competitive this year. I don't feel like the Chiefs are a juggernaut. I don't feel like the Bengals are a juggernaut. I feel like every team's in it, and it just seems like the Chiefs are a little bit more human. I know they did beat a really good Jacksonville team, but they didn't look very good. Mahomes didn't look absolutely outstanding. He still made, incredible plays and got what he needed to get done, to ultimately win the game. But they're beatable, and so are the Jaguars. So, there's no true juggernaut. But it is funny what having Chris Jones and Travis Kelce on the field does, even though they didn't have, it wasn't a super high scoring game, which usually I kind of expected this one to be a shootout, but it was just a close, nitty gritty, gross game, And Trevor Lawrence didn't look too good out there. But yeah, the Chiefs defense just weirdly shows up when they need them to. And stopping the Jaguars to 9 points is fantastic. But it's gonna be interesting to watch these two teams for the rest of the season, especially the Chiefs, because they look maybe not like the Chiefs of last year, to me, in my opinion.
Patrick Mahomes, he's had two, if what feels like down weeks, but he's still put up 23 and 25 points. So if he's doing that on down weeks for the Chiefs, I can't wait to see what he does on their big weeks.
Yeah, especially with Travis Kelce not playing too good this week either. Even though he scored a touchdown, Danny said earlier, he dropped 2 touchdowns. So it'll get better for sure.
Yeah, Travis Kelce had like 20 fantasy points that were left out on the field. And speaking of that, this is the perfect opportunity to speak about those fantasy points left out on the field. Trevor Lawrence had 4 touchdowns that were very close to being completed, but 1 foot was out of bounds. So he had 4 touchdowns this game that had 1 foot in, 1 foot out, 2 by Zay Jones, 2 by Calvin Ridley. And yeah, so that's something big in fantasy to look out for. There's a lot of points missed out on this game. Everyone thought it was going to be a high scoring one, and it kind of let us down, especially with the Travis Etienne too.
Oh, man. Yeah. Travis Etienne what do we think about Travis Etienne?
I think he'll be fine, but it was a rough game. Chris Jones is a monster though.
But wait, was Tank Bigsby hurt?
No, he was fine.
He just casually didn't get a carry.
He just casually didn't get a target or a carry.
That is so weird.
They were feeling Dearness Johnson this week, but they were feeling Tank Bigsby week 1. So I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. He did fumble. Was it once or twice? I can't remember week 1. So maybe he's facing the wrath of that. NFL teams don't like when you fumble the ball. yeah, overall gross game, but excited to see these teams, and how they do in week 3 that kind of answer from this low scoring game.
Yeah, I'm sure both teams will come back with a lot of points next week. We'll get on to the next game, and that is the Falcons beating the Packers 25-24 at home. It was a really impressive comeback. I'll be honest, I like that a lot. Love to see that by Arthur Smith. Bijan Robinson, aka LaDainian Tomlinson clone, is incredible. It's so fun to watch his cuts, his moves. He's special, and the Falcons defense is like very much improved. Probably one of the more improved units of all offseason in the NFL. So that's something that's pretty underrated. And this Falcons team's 2-0 and rolling.
For starters, Packers, they need Aaron Jones. Personally, I'd love to see them struggle without him as a selfish fantasy manager of Aaron Jones. So I think Aaron Jones is going to be back in a big way next week. But yeah, I mean, they couldn't get anything going on the ground. Jordan Love, he was all right for fantasy with those 3 touchdowns, but he's only 14 for 25, and 2 for 23 on the ground. Definitely a down week without Aaron Jones or Christian Watson. So I'm excited to see those 2 back, especially Christian Watson. We haven't seen him yet this year, and Jordan Love has looked so good. Now think about when he gets his real number one target.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna speak on the Falcons right here. I love the brand of football they're playing. It's so unique. 42 running attempts is just crazy for being in 2023. It just feels like they're playing in like the 1980s.
And they were down most of the game, and they were still just running it. They were down like the whole game.
Yeah, it's just a unique style of football, and they have the guy to do it. I mean, Bijan Robinson is just absolutely. I mean, he's incredible. I've never seen. I mean, he might be the most elusive and have the best cuts I've ever seen. I mean, this guy is fantastic. It's Barry Sanders, LaDainian Tomlinson-esque, the way he moves, and it's fun to see. And I like the way that they use him in the passing game too. I mean, I think Shane, do you have their target share for the first 2 weeks? Is he their number 1 receiver too?
Bijan?
Yeah.
I mean, probably, but
it is good to see as well that Tyler Algier was kind of phased out in week 2 as well. So Bijan's just getting the lion's share of these carries already, and it's week 2.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and the brand of football is just so fun. And the Falcons being 2-0 is awesome. I know Dan and me were talking about this game, the preview of this game, and he convinced me to change my vote from the Packers to the Falcons. I'm glad I did, because what a game.
So Bijan has 11 targets through 2 games. Drake London has 8 targets through 2 games. And Mr. Kyle Pitts also has 8 targets through 2 games. So
yeah, a whopping 11 targets for the leading receiver.
The running back.
RB1 and wide receiver 1. I hope you drafted Bijan Robinson, because man, we were a little freaked out in week 1, even though he scored like 20 points, but just because of that Tyler Algier share. But it doesn't matter if Tyler Algier has 16 carries. Bijan is just with he's getting a fine amount of touches.
Mac Hollins.
Yep, I was just gonna say.
Wait, 10 targets.
Wow.
So
I was just gonna say that Mac Hollins is a baller. That's all I was gonna say. Is Mac Hollins balled out in this game?
He did, but he has more targets than Kyle Pitts and Drake London, and his name was not mentioned by probably anyone in draft season. So yeah.
I think Jonnu Smith might have more than both of them as well. I know he had 6. Either week 2 or week 1, he had 6.
Oh yes, he's probably 10. Yeah.
Actually, all right. Let's see. Jonnu Smith has.
He had 4 for 47 last week.
He has 6.
6 total. Okay.
He was tight end 1 over Kyle Pitts last week. Kyle Pitts is awful. Shane was right. I'll give you the props for that, Shane. You called it. Me and Dan tried to hype him up. And I don't know if it's really Kyle Pitts or this offense.
I think
I'm not going to crown Desmond Ridder because he's really hasn't been that impressive. It's just more the running backs, carrying this team.
He's only, I think, 22 for for redraft purposes, like this year, yeah, it sucks. You just drafted a bust. Dynasty, just hold on. I mean, when he's 24, 25, 26, he could be insane. For now, dude's a bust.
Speaking of dynasty, shout out to Rams fans because you guys are getting Kyle Pitts next year. I can see the vision. I already see it. Kyle Pitts is going to be a Ram, and he's going to be electric and just ruin the NFL. He's going to take the league by storm.
Well, that was random, but all right.
Very random thought I had, but Kyle
I
Pitts.
hope,
is a
I
Ram.
hope Kyle Pitts
Shout out Rams fans for Dan's random thought that they're going to get a bust of a tight end.
Yep. Hopefully some Rams fans are watching, but we'll get on to our next game. It is the Chargers who go into Nashville, Tennessee and lose by 27-24. And it sucks because the Chargers are doing the right things and still losing. And you got to be able to close out games like these to make the playoffs in that crazy AFC. So,
oh man, we have to
And
talk
these
about
Chargers, these guys suck. Justin Herbert, that dude, I'm just kidding. But it is definitely concerning. Joshua Kelly was a very big letdown this week. I think everyone thought he was going to be in for a big week with no Austin Eckler. Keenan Allen was huge. Mike Williams was great.
Keenan took all the Eckler targets.
Yeah, he was the beneficiary of that. But I mean, the Chargers are just finding new ways to lose.
Wait.
Are you setting the timer?
Okay, it's right. Let's go.
So, I'm under a little bit of pressure here, but I mean, I just have to go over two records. I mean, we're setting new records. Last week, we're the only team in NFL history to run for over 200 yards, score 33 points, and win the turnover differential by +2. Teams before that were 300-0. Now it's 301 to the Chargers. So great record there. And this week we set another record. The Chargers are the only team to ever start 0-2, despite scoring 50+ points with no turnovers. So 2 records. So I mean, there is a silver lining. We are setting records that no one thought could ever be done. I mean, the offense is firing on all cylinders. Last week they ran the ball great. This week they threw the ball great. But they're just not. They're having coaching issues. They're having a breakdown. I don't know what it is, but they're playing to almost it's like a weird brand of football. They're playing to not lose, and they're shooting themselves in the foot at the end of the day. And the team is talented enough to bounce back, but I mean, the coaching staff and the defense is a major problem. And maybe it's time to give Justin. Sorry, Shane, I'm going over my.
I'm kidding. You're good.
But maybe it's time to start. I mean, it's kind of hard to blame a quarterback that just threw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns with no turnovers. But I mean, there's so many times the Chargers could have closed out the game, whether that's the coaching, whether that's on Justin Herbert, whether it's the offensive line not holding up at the end of the game. But I mean, something's not right. Something's not clicking, and there needs to be change. And the offense is playing too good a football to just be choking in the fourth quarter and overtime. And it's disappointing. And I'm a guy that never likes to put blame on Justin Herbert, but I don't know. I don't know if he's struggling to read the defense. I don't know if he's not checking into the right calls, but when it comes to clutch time, he has not been clutch these past 2 games. And whether it's his fault, I mean, it's kind of hard to blame it on him with how he's been playing. But I mean, when it comes down to clutch time, he's not showing up, and neither is the defense.
Sorry.
Go, Hardy. Go ahead.
I'll say like maybe Herbert needs to force the issue a little bit more. Like maybe he could just be a little bit more aggressive, say F you to the coach and just do what he wants. But as a Broncos fan for the last 7 years, if we had any version of any Herbert ever, we probably would be insane like with him. Like I don't really get what isn't working or what isn't clicking, what isn't working. Like I just don't know what it is. I can't blame Herbert. There's no way it's Herbert. If Herbert was on many other teams in the NFL, they would be Super Bowl favorites. So I don't really understand what it is, what is not getting the Chargers the win. I think their weakest spot, like on the roster that I see visually watching the games, is probably their corners because they're kind of liabilities right now. Yeah. Yeah,
the corners are absolutely getting exposed. But I mean, Justin Herbert has a quarterback rating of 102 through 2 weeks. He's 534 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, 1 touchdown running, and 0 turnovers. So they're scoring they averaged the last 2 weeks. They're averaging 29 points per week, and they're not winning. And that, I think, that just has major. I mean, it's got to be the culture at this point. They've been too good for too many years to keep losing like this, and it's the culture, it's the coaching staff, it's the players not clicking. I don't know why they can't figure it out, but at the end of the day, the Chargers are going to charge you, and that's not going to change. Shout out to the Titans. We made Ryan Tannehill look very good. He was 20 of 24, and was thrown all over us, and he looked like a relevant quarterback. So shout out to the Chargers for making people look better than they are.
All right, let's move on.
After his terrible week one, that is a good point, actually. But we'll get on to the next game, the 49ers and Rams, and that was a close game. The 49ers win 30-23 in LA, and we talked a lot about Puka Nacua. That was the kind of the story of the game, and week one as well. He's just bursted onto the scene, and the Rams have just been really competitive. So shout out to Sean McVay. He's kind of proved everyone wrong. This Rams roster has no business being as good and competitive as it looked, but it's looked like a real NFC contender. Like they battled with the Niners, went back and forth with them, played a really good game, probably one of the better games you're going to see the Niners in all year. So you love to see that. And then the Niners, let's just talk about Christian McCaffrey, because this is literal 2019 Christian McCaffrey. He had 100% of the carries. He's getting the same amount of usage as 2019 McCaffrey, and he's the best. He should have been the first overall pick in fantasy. It's incredible.
Yeah, CMC is back. He's healthy. He's looking great. He's on one of the best offenses. But yeah, the Rams, for one, they're really fun to watch coming in. Everyone was doubting them. They're going to be a bottom 5 team, but no, they're looking great, and they're really fun to watch. Kyron Williams, get that dude on your team, barring any additions, unless they trade for Jonathan Taylor or something. This dude's going to be a great valuable fantasy running back to have for the rest of the year. And then Puka and Tutu, they did their thing. They did their thing again. I can't wait to see what they're like with Cooper Kupp back. I feel like Tutu will probably take a bigger hit than Puka. I think Puka will still be that dude, maybe not 15 receptions type of guy, but maybe 7 to 10 receptions. And then Cooper Kupp will come back into the regular Cooper Kupp type of role that we know. But yeah, other than that, I mean, Brandon Ayuk, I will say, I feel like Brandon Ayuk should have come back into the game. That dude was hurting. If you're watching that game, early on, he fell on his shoulder, came out, and he fell on it again, and then came back. It was weird. I can't believe he kept playing, but that dude was in pain.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
So I don't, he had a down week. That's because the dude shouldn't have been playing.
I got a question for you guys. Can you throw any quarterback into the 49ers offense and they'll be good?
Bro, what's Brock Purdy done? What negative thing has Brock Purdy ever done? I've never watched that guy do anything bad.
Can you throw any quarterback? I'm just saying, Brock Purdy's done good.
I mean, you could throw Jimmy G and Trey Lance, and they look pretty mid in there. So, I don't know. I think Brock Purdy just is pretty good at this point. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a casual.
No, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you, but I mean, the Shanahan, this Kyle Shanahan is just a new level of brilliance. And I don't know if I've ever seen anything just this fantastic from a defense and an offensive side. I know it's a closer game and they should have probably beat the Rams by more, but I mean, it's a division game, and, division games are always going to be close. But I mean, just the running plays and the schemes and just what they're able to do on a week-to-week basis, and with how many plays their defense makes, and just, I mean, it's just so brilliant to watch. And I'm just in awe. I mean, and the Shanahan tree's carried on over to Mike McDaniels, who's just absolutely brilliant too. And it's just crazy. It's crazy to watch. And I don't know if we could, I'm going to say he's probably the best. Him and Andy Reid and creativity and brilliance are probably the best coaches we've ever seen. So I mean, it's just crazy what they're able to do in their systems and everything. But I want to give a shout out just to Kyle Shanahan for what he's done to this Rams team. And I just don't feel like they could fail with anyone back there.
Yeah, we just witnessed two of the best play callers in all the NFL face off. It was a really fun matchup. We'll We'll get on to the next one, and I'll be honest, don't really want to talk about this one. I'm not even going to talk about the comeback, or I don't care about the comeback. I don't. The Giants beat the Cardinals 31-28 in Arizona. The Giants beat the projected first overall pick 31-28 in Arizona. I don't care if they came back. I don't care what the comeback looked like. It was embarrassing. The Giants embarrassed me. The Giants are embarrassing. I don't want to talk about it really.
Fair. No, that's fair. I will say Daniel Jones in the fourth quarter, he came alive. He ended as, I think, as the quarterback one for week 2. So that's great to leave him on my bench. But no, he looked good. I do think this was a must-win game for the Giants. It sucks. Saquon's going to be out a couple weeks. We'll see. I mean, I guess Matt Breida's next guy up. I don't know how valuable he'll be on Thursday night against the Niners. Probably not valuable at all. I'm not dropping any fab on him. But the rookie Jalen Hyatt, he had 2 targets for 89 yards, two catches off 2 targets for 89 yards. I definitely feel like I would have expected him to kind of see some more action, but maybe we'll have to wait a little bit longer for him to see more targets. Darren Waller was back on a, I guess if you want to grade it on a sliding scale for tight ends, because tight ends this year are a joke. He had 13.6 points and finished as the tight end 2 or 3, I believe, in fantasy for week 2. So that's how bad tight ends are.
Waller looked really, really good. I will say that watching this game, Waller popped. He looked kind of like Raiders Waller. Like he looked like a really, really solid tight end. And obviously Saquon was a freak as well.
Do you guys ever see that clip of Jonathan Gannon? He's like, zoom, 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 routes. You're fast.
No. Yeah, the super awkward one. Yeah.
It's, oh gosh. That's all I want to say about this game.
Yeah.
Jonathan Gannon's weird.
He's weird, and he does have the Cardinals defense playing a little better than they probably should be, which is weird as well. This whole Cardinals team's a little weird with Josh Dobbs too.
James
Conner
goofy.
Makes me feel uncomfortable, if I'm being honest. I don't really want to talk about it. Let's just move on.
Well, there's just no way James Conner is going to stay healthy with this usage. Dude had 23 carries, and he only had 1 target. 23 carries. This guy, you got to tone it down. But for fantasy purposes, you love to see that.
Yep. Cam Akers was our goof of the week player, and this game was our goof of the week game. We'll get on to the next game. The Cowboys rout the Jets at home. It is what it is. The Cowboys defense is incredible. They went up against the worst offense in the NFL, unfortunately. So it's interesting to see like how that evens out. But like it was just weird vibes. I was kind of getting weird vibes. But the Cowboys are probably the top team in the NFL so far in 2023, and CD is dumb.
Allen Lazard is definitely disappointing me. I was kind of high on him coming into the season. I will be dropping him tomorrow. Breece Hall, I know he was frustrated. Him and Sauce, they went to social media and kind of share their frustrations. I'm sure we see some things change next week. Granted, they still play a pretty tough defense. It's Bill Belichick. That dude just knows what to do. He's probably going to eat Zach Wilson alive. But yeah, I mean, Garrett Wilson's still going to get his every here and there, but I do think we're going to see some more often bust games than we expected because we were expecting Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah,
he got saved. Garrett Wilson got saved this week from that touchdown.
One thing I want to address myself on so far through 2 weeks is Mike McCarthy. I was very much hating on him and the way that they wanted to play football. But through 2 weeks, they have scored 70 points and only allowed 10 points. So, I mean, that's pretty impressive. They look good on all cylinders. Nothing's really gone wrong for the Cowboys. They look fantastic. On the Jets side of the ball, just an absolute disaster class. I don't think you can honestly be serious. I think if I was the Jets and if they had any kind of brains, in the GM office or the head coach, they'd be on the phone trying to get somebody that could be competent and competitive for this team. I mean, you have a top 5 defense. You've got one of the better wide receivers in football. You got really good running backs. I mean, there's no reason this team should be losing to anyone 30-10. But Shannon Sharp, like to give a quick little Shannon Sharp quote that he said. Says, "You're not going to win with him. Dude couldn't play dead in a horror movie. How many scenes do you need to see? I've seen all the Friday the 13th. I've seen all the Nightmare on Elm Streets. You've got to come to the realization he is what he is. So,
For those who don't know, he's talking about Zach Wilson, quarterback for the Jets.
so I mean, we can't be serious. Somehow they got a convince Phillip Rivers to come out of retirement, get Jacoby Brissett. I don't care who it is. You need a competent quarterback who can throw the football and lead this team. So I mean, I don't know. It's too bad to see Aaron Rodgers go down because this team had a lot of Super Bowl aspirations at one point.
Yeah, the Jets offense doesn't deserve to be the worst in the entire NFL. So Joe Douglas, swallow your pride, take your losses, and acquire a damn quarterback, man. You got to. This team is so talented. This roster is so fun. Just acquire Jacoby Brissett. Anyone, man. Just anyone. This Jets team is good, man. If they can just get that position.
Oh yeah, I think they could have competed with I mean, people are like, oh, if Aaron Rodgers and they still would have lost. I don't think so. I really don't. I honestly think. I mean, they wouldn't have lost by what they did. It wouldn't have been 30-10. I promise you that. So, yeah, swallow your pride. Go get a veteran quarterback. I mean, you don't need a great quarterback to win with this team. You just need somebody competent.
Yeah, interesting vibes in that game. We'll see how those teams progress. We'll get on to the next one. The Commanders go into Denver and come back and beat the Broncos. Pretty good win in Denver, 35-33. It was a kind of a crazy ending. The Broncos got a Hail Mary that converted, and they needed a 2-point conversion, and they would have got it if they called pass interference, but they happened to not call pass interference. That's okay. I'll be the big man. I'll take my L. I'll shout out first of all Eric Bieniemy. He kind of just makes that offense really explosive. They play really quick, and he spreads the ball around, so it kind of makes it hard to game plan against. So shout out to Eric Bieniemy. Shout out to Brian Robinson, who's the Commanders guy. He's their running back. Gibson only had 2 carries, and Brian Robinson looked good in the receiving game. So you absolutely love to see that. Fire him for the rest of the season in fantasy. You got to start him. So love the Commanders offense. Love the comeback. Love to see that. And on the Broncos aspect of things, you got the number 1 offense in the league in points per possession. And that just shows you who the problem is here, who lost you this game, and that's the defense. The defense has got to be better. Everyone's blaming it. Everyone in Denver is blaming it on Vance Joseph, and I don't think that's entirely fair. I think this is kind of just on the personnel. I think our personnel isn't really as good as people made it out to be, and I don't know if this Broncos defense is quality enough to keep them in the playoff race, sadly.
Yeah, it hurts for both of us right now. I feel your pain, brother. Starting out 0-2 is it's not feel good for teams that should be better, but it's a weird story that the Broncos defense is now the problem. It doesn't make sense. It's been the offense for so long, and the offense seems to finally figure it out, and then it just switched. It just seems like a nightmare. So sorry for that, Dan, but Commanders did play a heck of a football game on all aspects. I mean, they gave up 33 points, but the offense actually did look good under Sam Howell. And it was a high scoring, fun game to watch. So I mean, I do feel your pain.
Only thing I'll add, Jahan Dotson's been kind of disappointing through 2 weeks. I really hope we can see him step it up. But then Terry, he looked better. I know he's still dealing with his turf toe, but he hauled in a touchdown. It was a nice touchdown too. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm surprised. What's up with Samaje Perine? I thought he'd be getting more. He had 1 carry.
Yeah, that is something for fantasy football to keep notice on. Maybe buy low on Javonte because he wasn't really productive, but he did get all the carries. He got a good look in the receiving game. Perine only had 1 carry, and Perine was kind of just in there as a blocker mostly.
Yep.
And
all right,
before we move on, I just want to shout out the Commanders' defensive line. Just freakish beast. Chase Young's back. You love to see him back healthy. He's someone you love to see. And then shout out to Deron Payne. He had a drive in the 3rd quarter that, in my opinion, completely turned the game around. He had 3 plays in a row where he made 3 plays in a row, and it was a quick 3 and out, and the Commanders wouldn't scored right after that. So that and the Russ fumble really turned this game around and let the Commanders back in it. We'll go on to the Sunday night football game. The Dolphins go into New England to defeat the Patriots, and what was a pretty good kind of tight game, like everyone kind of expected these 2 teams to be in. And I'll call that the vintage Mostert game. That was really fun. Great job taking advantage of his opportunity, and the Dolphins kind of did a good job taking advantage of what Bill Belichick gave them, running their little 3 safety formation on defense. It didn't really work out because the Dolphins were just doing dink and dunks the whole time. But shout out to Bill Belichick for at least trying to do something. I don't know how you're going to stop this Dolphins team after watching that game. And then another guy I'll shout out was Christian Gonzalez. That guy, absolute monster, just CB1 in the draft. I don't know how he fell as far as he did. It makes no sense.
One thing I'll say is how I know it's only been 2 weeks, but how much longer do you hold on to Devon A-Chain before you just, cut him loose? One carry. He had one carry.
Yeah, you're probably pretty safe just to cut him loose right now. Yeah.
Especially if you're in a, depending on the bench depth, it's not worth it right now. He's shown nothing. So I don't know. Personally, I think I would cut ties with him. Same with Tank Bigsby. They're in the same situation, and they've been given really no opportunities.
No, yeah. I mean, Raheem Mostert is the RB1. It's kind of crazy. It's not much of a running back by committee what the Dolphins are kind of used to doing. Mike McDaniels kind of just does what Kyle Shanahan does, and Christian McCaffrey's RB1 and Raheem Mostert's RB1, where they, were kind of the people that almost were like the inventors of the running back by committee. So it's interesting.
Ramondre's kind of I was really, really, really high on him coming into this season, and he's looked not great. He was averaging 2.8 yards a carry and has 1 touchdown. So I really hope Bill Belichick can change something there, because he's been very disappointing.
It's crazy the Patriots are 0-2. That just doesn't feel right. In any kind of world, the Patriots are 0-2, the Dolphins are 2-0. Dolphins are one of the most high power team in the NFL right now. Tua is playing great football. I mean, he definitely came down to earth a little bit this week against a good Patriots defense, but I mean, they went out there and they got it done, and they got it done on the ground this week. I mean, last week it was 400 yards to the air. This week, Raheem Mostert running for 121 on the ground, 6.7 yards a carry, and 2 touchdowns against the stout Patriots D line. Shout out to them. Kind of just one of the more well-versed offenses, probably top 3 offense in the league as a lock right now, and playing a great brand of football. So shout out to the Dolphins.
I don't know how you're going to stop that offense, man. I don't know who's going to stop them, but I'm excited to see if someone can.
The Dolphins just seem to really be clicking on all 3 phases, and the coaching staff is just brilliant. And so it's just all coming together for the Dolphins finally. And it's going to be interesting to see what teams can truly compete with them, because I mean, they're good on defense, they're good on offense. Coaching staff is brilliant. The special teams is playing good. So there's really no weak spot of the Dolphins right now. And maybe even come December, they get Jalen Ramsey back, and and Teron Armstead's not even playing yet. So I mean, they're arguably playing without some of their best players, and they're playing one of the best brands of football in the NFL right now. So shout out to them. They're a scary team.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest question right now with the Dolphins as well, and like my biggest takeaway is who is going to stop this force of a team right now? What is going to stop it? Who's going to stop it? I don't know how you can stop it, but it'll be interesting to see how the Dolphins do. We'll move on to the 2 Monday night games tonight, which were a little sloppy, a little low scoring, but definitely divisional games. We'll start with the Saints, who go into Carolina and beat the Panthers by 3. We kind of called this one spot on. I feel like the Saints just have a higher floor than the Panthers at this point. They're kind of just more ready to win right now. They've got more veteran leadership, and Derek Carr looked fine. He had a pretty bad pick, but Chris Olave is electric. He's an absolute playmaker. Both defenses look pretty good. Actually, was very impressed by the Panthers defense, but Dennis Allen has the Saints playing good on all cylinders, and I think the Saints team is probably going to win this division. And when Alvin Kamara's back, I have a feeling he's going to be pretty good.
Alvin Kamara is set up for basically his original role that he had 2 years ago. I think he's going to be end up being a steal in drafts. He's going to be awesome. But Miles Sanders has definitely been pretty disappointing. He's getting plenty of volume. I mean, tonight he had 14 carries and 5 targets. And that turned into 7.7 fantasy points. That's
Are 3 teams in the NFC South 2-0?
Yeah.
That's just that's just immaculate in itself. Let's just say, would have never guessed that. The poor Panthers are already 2 games behind the Saints, the Falcons, and the Bucks are all 2-0. So ridiculous. Maybe the NFC South is a little bit better than we thought. Play kind of a gross style of football, but they're getting the job done at this point. Not a very exciting game. And Taysom Hill's your leading rusher, which is kind of gross. But they managed to go out there and get the job done. And Chris Olave is awesome. He looks electric. He had that fantastic catch, which Danny has in the picture right here. And then I don't remember if I said this pre-draft, but I think I did. I think I called my shot on CJ Stroud being quarterback 1 of this draft class. And it's starting to look true. Not any hate to Bryce Young. I think CJ Stroud has a little bit better surrounding cast and a little bit better coaching staff, but I think I called my shot on that, and I need to go back and watch some earlier episodes. But not that Bryce Young had a bad game by any means, but I think CJ Stroud is quarterback 1 of this draft class.
Yeah, Bryce Young didn't look too bad, but yeah, I definitely see what you mean. There's a little bit of meat left on the bone with some of the plays, but I think he's definitely going to develop into a very, very good player. I wish his floor was a little bit higher. I wish he kind of hit the ground running a little bit better. I predicted them to, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see out of Richardson, Stroud, Levis, and Young who finishes the best.
But Bryce Young gives me kind of Joe Burrow rookie year vibes, just kind of out there, not a great O-line, not a great surrounding cast. But I don't know. I do expect Bryce Young, he's going to go through his rookie, ups and downs. But I think he's got the poise and the mindset to be a great quarterback one day.
And then on fantasy, all 3 Saints receivers, I'm perfectly fine starting. Michael Thomas looks pretty solid and healthy. Obviously, Olave is a must start. And then Rashid Shaheed makes some electric plays out there.
Yeah, Rashid Shaheed's definitely a good flex play if you want some boomer bust type of action. He could go off for 2 touchdowns and 120 yards or 4 catches for 35 yards.
And did they say how serious the Jamal Williams injury was yet? Because Kendry Miller could be a really good option for at least a week or 2.
I haven't heard, but is Kendry Miller even healthy? I think that's
he scored today. Yeah.
Oh, he played
Tony Jones scored.
Oh, that was Tony Jones. I'm tripping. Yeah, that was Tony Jones playing that looks like Kendry Miller. Yeah, Tony Jones scored both those sessions.
Yeah, Kendry Miller hasn't played yet.
Yeah.
So that's no Kendry Miller, no Jamal Williams, 1 more week, and then Alvin Kamara is back. It's going to be that dude's backfield.
He's going to be good, man. Let's get on to the last game of the week. Kind of a depressing one. The Steelers beat the Browns. They keep their 20-game home streak on Monday Night Football alive. It's 21 now, and the Steelers D went crazy. Before we talk about the Browns, shout out to Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt. They kind of just flipped this game over and just put the team on their backs and won it. The Steelers defense was stout. Even when Mika Fitzpatrick got hurt, they played really well. So shout out to the Steelers defense. They can be in really any game, especially this divisional games, because of them. TJ Watt will probably be the defensive player of the year runner-up again. But you never know. He could get it over Myles Garrett. I could see it. But we got to talk about Nick Chubb going down. It's so depressing. I was so excited for this Browns team and Nick Chubb. Their running identity was just badass. And he was looking really good at the beginning of this game when he was healthy. So it's super unfortunate. It looks like they're probably going to bring in Kareem Hunt, and it makes all the sense in the world. I don't know why they wouldn't. I think Jerome Ford, he looked good coming in his second year. I think Jerome Ford, he had that one really long run, and I think Jerome Ford could be a good option even with Kareem Hunt. I think he's a decent option. I wouldn't spend too much fab on him, but I would pick him up.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think it's clear they're going to bring someone in, but Jerome Ford proved tonight that he's capable of being their guy. I think he's worth 10% of your fab. Just put 10% or so out there. If you get him, great. If not, I don't think it'll hurt. But he could be a nice stash to have on your bench.
Yeah, I was going to say, 16 carries for 106 yards, and then
he should have had a touchdown.
Yeah, well, he did. He had a receiving touchdown.
Oh, so he should have had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. So he was 3 for 25 in the receiving game with the touchdown. So he played actually he played really good football out there. And it'll be interesting to see. It's kind of scary to spend your fat bucks not knowing whether Kareem Hunt will be there or not. Because it's going to happen so quick. You have to go out and start bidding on these guys, tomorrow. But I think he's worth it. I mean, with how good he played, I think it's definitely worth the risk, because this could be, I mean, if you have Nick Chubb, I'd almost bid everything on both players, just to be safe, so you don't ruin your season. But yeah, it's absolutely devastating. And I mean, it was a rough game for both offenses. I mean, a lot of turnovers, picks, fumbles, you name it. But the Steelers defense just seemed to get them over the hump in that last second. I can't remember who was it. The forced fumble, and TJ Watt picked it up and scored.
Alex
Highsmith. He looked fantastic, and then TJ Watt scoring that. That was the nail in the coffin right there. And the Steelers played good. Their defense played fantastic and definitely deserved to win that game.
And speaking on the fantasy weapons real quick, Amari Cooper is a beast. He's so reliable, just a really solid, reliable option for fantasy and real football too. So start Amari Cooper always. Interesting to see him healthy. It looked like he wasn't going to play. And then kind of interesting for the rest of the Browns receivers. You would think Elijah Moore would get more work, but they really work in all of these receivers. They got Elijah Moore. They got Cedric Tillman, who got some work. David Bell, who I thought was a bust last year. He got a lot of work today. And then they also have Donovan Peoples-Jones too. So there's a lot of receivers getting the ball spread around to. David Njoku look good. So I think outside of Amari Cooper, I'm a little bit hesitant starting any of those receivers. But on the Steelers, it's definitely a little bit suspect as well. Allen Robinson was their wide receiver too. He didn't really get anything at all. I don't think you could start him moving forward. And that's a wide receiver too. So that's kind of crazy to say. George Pickens, though, is a real wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 start every week.
Yeah, George Pickens, 10 targets. That dude, he played the part tonight. Only four catches. Granted, I'm sure only 4 of them were catchable, or else he would have caught the others. But I think the Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren story is it's kind of scary for Najee Harris managers. Jaylen Warren looks so much better than Najee back there. So much more explosive, so much quicker. I know Najee's game isn't quickness necessarily, but just overall, Jaylen Warren looked so much better.
Yeah, Steelers offense is just kind of scary. Kenny Pickett, preseason Kenny, just not playing very good. Doesn't look confident out there. 15 to 30, completing 50% of his passes. I don't know. I just disappointed in Kenny Pickett. I mean, we made a little thing for Kenny Pickett that we thought he'd step up from last year and play a little bit better. He's definitely regressed. I don't know why. Year 2 under Mike Tomlin, but again, it's only week 2. Maybe he'll have a bounce back. But yeah, the Steelers offense not looking too good, but wow, that defense is fantastic.
Yeah, very good way of summing it up. Kenny Pickett's a little suspect out there. We'll see how he does next week. But yeah, fun recapping all these games. Fun adding the studs and goofs segment, and excited for next week. Shout out to Shane for being the picks champ. And yeah, tune into the NFL Seekers podcast. We've got our week 3 preview coming out in a few days here on Thursday. So yeah, check out the NFL Seekers podcast on all platforms. Thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe. Peace.
Peace.